Hi, I'm Leah Huber, founder of Nourish Evolution, and I'm so glad you're here with me today on this webinar. I really believe that this webinar is going to change the way that you feed your family. This webinar is really the culmination of 20 years of me being a Nourish evangelist and a food writer, and almost 10 years of me being a mom. I'm going to talk to you in just a second about what I call the Nourish Evolution, which are the 5 stages that we progress through when we're making a shift from processed food to real food in real life. And what had happened to me in my life, and I think that probably it happens to a lot of people, is that I had gotten to the land of Nourish. I was eating a lot of seasonal vegetables cooked with healthy fats and whole grains and smartly sourced proteins, and really loving and enjoying that food. And then we adopted our daughter and I became a mom, and everything went out the window. Suddenly I had less time, I had less energy, I had a child, another being that, had tastes and preferences of her own. So I have developed strategies on both getting nourishing food on the table every night, but then also strategies on how to nurture a healthy relationship with food with our kids. Because we all know that beating our kids over the head and saying, clean your plate, that just doesn't work. So I've developed these strategies to really help kids fall in love with nourishing food on their own. So that's what I'm going to share with you here in this webinar. I'm really excited to do that. And you'll also hear me mention another culmination of all of these experiences behind me called Cook the Seasons. And it is our awesome online menu planning program that I'm excited to share with you. I'll give you a little sneak preview here. It's beautiful. Let's see, that's upside down. There we go. Ta-da-da-da-da. But stick with me through the webinar, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Cook the Seasons at the end. And I've got a special offer for you too to give you a chance to check it out. So we're going to dig in. I'm really excited about this webinar, so enjoy.
Hi, I'm Leah Huber, and I am delighted to be presenting the Nourish Evolution Kids Club, 3 golden rules for getting kids to fall in love with nourishing food. First of all, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm the founder of the Nourish Evolution, and our mission is to inspire and equip people to make a lasting shift from processed food to real food in real life. And part of that equipping is Cook the Seasons, which we launched the summer of 2015 and had a real success with it. It's a revolutionary new customizable meal planner that puts seasonal vegetables at the center of the plate. So Cook the Seasons is actually not just about inspiring and equipping individuals, but it also has an effect on the whole family and certainly on kids. So it's definitely relevant to the conversation that we're having here with the Kids Club. So my background is actually in magazine writing. I was a food writer and recipe developer for magazines like Cooking Light and Health and Prevention, all kinds of others, for almost 20 years now, I guess. And that's what sort of led me into Nourish Evolution. But I'm going to take you back even further than that, actually. Back in my 20s, I was always in pain. I was always in pain. My joints would throb so much, my knees would throb under my desk, and I was in so much pain I couldn't even unscrew the toothpaste cap in the morning. It was that bad. I was always about 20 pounds overweight. I was just exhausted, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was living in New York City at the time and was kind of just shuttled back and forth from doctor to doctor and specialist to specialist, and they would just give me another shot or give me another pill, and nobody knew what was wrong with me. And then when I moved to California and got married at the end of my 20s, I was diagnosed with lupus. So all of my pain was finally given a name, and my doctor looked at me and said, if you don't change the way you eat, there's a good chance that you're gonna be facing, dying. So it was a dire diagnosis. And about a year later, I was diagnosed with a rare form of precancer, and it was a terrible year fighting that as well. So by the time I hit 30, I was thinking, what is going on? Here I am, I'm a food writer for all these healthy magazines, and this just isn't working for me. I'm really great at lightening up, doing all the light stuff, the light Snackwell's cookies, and doing the light mac and cheese, and the light this and that. But it wasn't working for me. And so I started to seek out nutrition-focused assignments to be able to go directly to the source, directly to the food researchers who were on the cutting edge, finding out what we really should be eating to nourish our bodies. And I kept hearing the same thing over and over again, whether it was somebody at Harvard or somebody at Penn or somebody at the University of Athens. And they kept saying, you need to eat a lot of vegetables, cooked with healthy fats, and rounded out with whole grains and some smartly sourced protein. And I was like, wow. So check that out. I know what to eat now. This is amazing. But I had one problem. I hated vegetables. Really, really hated vegetables. The only vegetables I liked were raw carrots and cucumbers. So, and potatoes if you counted them in French fry form. So I had a long way to go. I could see what I wanted to eat, how I wanted to eat, but I didn't really know how to get there. So I gave myself a year. On a New Year's Eve, I gave myself a year to be able to figure this out, to be able to figure out how to make those healthy foods, those nourishing foods, taste in a way that I would want to eat for the rest of my life. So I started experimenting and playing and really giving myself permission to try new things and even to try old things with new eyes on, with a new set of eyes on, and taste buds on. And I eventually got to this place where I fell in love with vegetables. And you can see me, that's me holding beets there, which is kind of revolutionary for me because beets were one of the things that I hated the most. But then when I discovered what they tasted like, fresh from the farmer's market and roasted with olive oil and salt and pepper, I mean, forget about it. I love them now. And the effect was incredible. I finally lost that 20 pounds almost without even really noticing it. It was just sort of like, oh look, my pants are too loose. I never felt like I was on a diet. The indicators for lupus went away, and my diagnosis was reversed to fibromyalgia. I had more energy, more just oomph for life and gusto for life than I had ever had in my 20s. So it was a huge, huge impact making that shift. So everything changed. And, as you may recognize this because you're familiar with the Nourish Evolution. What I'm telling you is the story of my Nourish Evolution. This is from blissfully blind prairie through the pinnacles of shit angst, through the hump, the peaks and valleys of practice to the land of nourish. So this is my story of my Nourish Evolution. And really, you could say that I was a picky kid all the way until I was in my 30s. So I've got some real insight as to what how to answer this question, because this is the burning one we're going to be looking at, is how do you raise kids to love nourishing food? The first question I'd really like you to ask, though, is why? Why raise kids to love nourishing food, right? So first, let's just take a look at the effects of junk food. Young adults who eat junk food more than twice a week gained on average 10 pounds more and had twice the insulin resistance, which is the biggest risk for diabetes, or biggest lead up to diabetes, than that of kids who ate it less than once. One study showed rate of depression 58% higher in kids who ate junk food, probably due to the hormonal balance that needs to happen, as they're working through puberty, and that gets thrown off by junk food. Kids who ate junk food before the age of 3 were tested 5 years later and had on average 5 points lower IQ than those who didn't. And that has to do with brain development. There's also kidney and liver damage that can happen. The risk of cancer rises. A lot of really bad things happen because of junk food. And that's not even mentioning soda. Oh my goodness. Then we're into soda. Soda has an addictive property where it throws kids into this processed food sugar rush and then an adrenaline surge and then a sugar crash. For each additional 2 sodas a day, the risk of obesity triples. Men who drink a sugary drink, and this is just because the study was done on men, doesn't mean it doesn't affect women and children the same way. Men who drink a sugary drink each day have a 20% greater chance of having a heart attack. And children who grow up drinking sodas have an 80% greater chance of developing type 2 diabetes. So this type of processed food, processed junk food, soda, this type of food just doesn't serve our kids at all. Now let me try to explain to you a little bit of why. So first let me just take you through what our bodies do when they process a whole grain, just to show you what happens when our bodies are processing real food versus processed food. So this is an image on the left of a whole grain, and you'll see that sort of gray outside area there. That's the bran, that's the fibrous coating, sort of papery coating of a grain. And then the light kind of creamy part in the center is called the endosperm, and that is basically starch. And the yellow part is the germ, and that's where the protein is and the healthy fat is. So what our bodies do, if you look over on the right, when they're digesting a whole grain, is the digestive enzymes work at that sort of brown outer triangle, outer rectangle around that image, it shows the digestive enzymes digesting through the actual kernel of grain itself. So it's got to, our whole body's got to kind of work on that. First, we're chewing it, and we're literally chewing the grain and breaking it down that way. And then it's working through the saliva is kind of breaking it down, and then it goes into the stomach, and the digestive enzymes start to break it down. And then it hits the coating of fiber, that bran is that coating of fiber, and they're working through all of that. And then they get in and they've got those glucose molecules, and that's those sort of easily broken down sugar molecules, those glucose molecules. But in with it, they've also got phytonutrients, antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals that they're taking in as well. So this is what happens when your body processes a whole grain. And it takes a while to go through this whole process, breaking it down from a whole grain, through the fiber, through all of those pieces of the whole grain, and taking in all of those other elements, the phytonutrients, the antioxidants, the vitamins, the minerals, and more, before it gets to the glucose. Okay, so that's what our body does with an intact whole grain. This is what happens with a refined grain. You'll notice on the left that all that's left is the endosperm, that starchy endosperm, and that's basically glucose molecules. So on the right, you'll see there is no outer coating. Our bodies don't have to work to break down any kind of a kernel whatsoever. There's not the fibrous bran coating on the outside. That's not there. So our bodies go straight to those glucose molecules. And there's not anything for it to take away. There's not any of those phytonutrients, of those vitamins, of those minerals, of those antioxidants. None of that is in there either. So all that happens when we're eating refined grains, and this is what we find in junk food, this is what we find in soda, this is all this stuff. We're finding our bodies just go right to the glucose and process it super, super fast. So what happens is our blood sugar spikes, and then insulin spikes to drop the blood sugar, and then the blood sugar drops really low, and it's this up and down and up and down and up and down sort of fight that our bodies are going through when we're eating junk food. And that is what leads to insulin resistance and eventually to diabetes and all kinds of different problems. In kids also, that blood sugar drop, that leads, well, in everybody, but in kids especially, I think it's important to notice, it leads to that blood sugar drop, which leads to fatigue. And if you think about it, if they're going through this up and down, sugar high, running around, sugar drop, boom, all day long, how's that going to affect their studies? How's that going to affect their concentration, right? So it's important to think about that. So now compare that sort of junk food effect with what I'm about to tell you about plants and the effect of plants. Up there we've got a beautiful salad up on the upper left, and here we've got the whole grain there just below it. So plant-based foods are doing an enormous amount of good. Beyond the proteins and the carbs and the fats and the vitamins and minerals that we find in vegetables and in whole grains, things like vitamin C and zinc and essential fatty acids, we're talking about those all the time. Those are kind of the big macronutrients, but there exists a whole other powerful realm that's called phytonutrients or phytochemicals that are in plants, exclusively in plants. Phytonutrients are what give plant-based foods their flavor, their smell, their taste, and they're also powerhouse antioxidants and antibiotics and anti-inflammatory and cancer preventing. The amazing thing is, though, we don't know much about these phytonutrients. Phytonutrients outnumber macronutrients, so the ones I was just talking about the vitamins and the minerals and the fats and the proteins. Phytonutrients outnumber those macronutrients by roughly 10,000 to 1. And scientists will readily say that they don't really understand or know much about these phytonutrients other than to know that they are incredibly powerful. So as a writer, as a food writer, I started to get really disenchanted about having to write about the next great superfood, because I realized that I don't really believe that there is such thing as a superfood, as superfoods. I think what's happening is, as scientists discover what's going on with phytonutrients in a particular food, they're dubbing it a superfood because they're able to understand it. Blueberries, oh my gosh, look at these amazing, nutrients in here. Who knew, right? Tomatoes, oh my gosh, who knew what was going on in here? So it's like we're dubbing them superfoods once we understand them. But the reality is they're all plants are superfoods. They're these amazing, amazing phytonutrients that are just going crazy in these plants and giving us all of these incredible benefits. And so I just think that all plants are basically superfoods, whether or not we understand them yet or not. Something else that I think is interesting is that the USDA readily admits that it doesn't understand. It knows that phytonutrients are super powerful, but it doesn't understand them enough to even put forth a recommended daily allowance. So what's interesting is that when we look at labels, all we're seeing is kind of a very, very small handful of macronutrients. We see vitamin A on there, we see vitamin C, we see various things like that. But there's nothing, no mention at all on labels of any of these phytonutrients. And yet they're probably the most powerful things, powerful things out there. So just another argument to, try and move further and further away from things with labels and further towards things that don't even carry labels but are the most healthy things for us. I think it's also important to define what healthy food means. And to me, healthy food means something that doesn't do you harm and does do you good. So if we look back to the effect of junk food and the effect of these plant-based foods, junk food clearly does our body harm. I showed you all of those statistics in the beginning. And plant-based food really does do us good. So we can, conclude that healthy food includes a whole lot of plants. So great, we've got the why it's important to raise our kids eating healthy food, and even the what the food is doing to their bodies. Now the question is how? How to get kids programmed with to eat things like broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts and all that. First, let's take a look at what's going on in a kid's head when they say ooh. When kids say ooh, they're not really saying they don't like a food. They're just reacting to the fact that it's unfamiliar. Acceptance of specific food items increases with repeated neutral exposure, typically 10 to 20 exposures, but moms typically decide that their kid doesn't like something and stop serving it after just 3 exposures. So exposure is really, really important. And note that exposure doesn't mean just tasting something. It means exposure to all 5 senses. So that means hearing the way something sizzles or crunches, or smelling the way it smells, seeing it, touching it, tasting it. The key to letting your kid attempt all those exposures is to create an atmosphere of experimentation that's totally uncharged emotionally. So the key is really just to chill. The 3 golden rules that I use in our house that has worked pretty well so far is the try one bite philosophy. So this is, again, without charge. The whole idea is that you are giving them the opportunity to try a bite and teeing it up in the sense that your kid is a food explorer, a food adventurer, and don't explorers and adventurers want to try new things? So try one bite. Now that close on the heels of the try one bite is opt-out language. Kids need to feel safe saying, I don't, that's just not my thing. I don't like it, right? But we don't want them to use the words, I don't like it, because that shuts the door for them. That, in their mind, that programs them to think that they really don't like it instead of just, it's something new. So some good opt-out language that we use is, I haven't learned to like it yet. Or, I just don't prefer this right now. Those are 2 good opt-out language things. That I haven't learned to like it yet, or I don't really prefer this right now. Really great opt-out language. So your kid can try one bite of something, and instead of fighting it, they can just say then, you know what, I haven't learned to like this yet. And what you say is, that is just fine. Good for you for trying it. Awesome job trying it. The 3rd golden rule is having a variety in fallbacks. You always want to have a variety of foods on their plate so that you might have something new on there and they're going to do that try one bite, but then there's something to fall back to that they can eat that they like. So it's important to have a variety and fallbacks couched with that opt-out language. The key is no pressure at all, and no giving in. Because the second you hop up from the table to make your kid pasta and butter, you've totally lost your credibility as a fellow adventurer. You too need to be an adventurer, encouraging your kid to try new things, just as you are trying new things. So as soon as you start playing short order cook and saying, oh, you didn't like that, let me get up and make something you do like, then you're just reinforcing that I don't like thing, which doesn't really hold true. It just means that it's something new that maybe they haven't had enough exposures to. Remember those 20 exposures and reinforce the opt-out language when your kid starts with the, oh, I don't like it, I don't like it. So I'm going to just illustrate with a story about these Brussels sprouts. My daughter notoriously, I think I can say this honestly, does not like Brussels sprouts, did not like Brussels sprouts. She would use Brussels sprouts as an example when any questionnaire would say, what's your least favorite food? She would unequivocally write Brussels sprouts. And she tried them enough that she felt like she could declare that she didn't really like Brussels sprouts. But I kept up the language of, yeah, maybe you haven't just learned to like them yet. Maybe you haven't learned to like, maybe you haven't found a way that you like them yet. And so this is a Brussels sprout dish from Cook the Season's Fall. And I was testing it the other day. And Noe had her friend here. And I was taking a couple bites of these, and it was just so good. I was making all kinds of noise and saying it was so great. And Noe had, vehemently declared how much she doesn't like Brussels sprouts to her friend. But then, as I kept eating them and really liking them, she said, I said, you're welcome to try them. I'd love for you to give them a try. And she said, well, maybe I'll just take one nibble. And she took a nibble of the end of one of them, and her eyes kind of went wide, and she's like, oh, maybe I'll just eat a whole one. And then she ate a whole one. And then she looked up at me and she goes, Mommy, can I have the whole dish? And she and her friend ended up splitting the whole dish. And of course, her friend was like, ew, to Brussels sprouts when they came out because Noe was saying how much she didn't like them. But then when Noe had turned the corner and within 30 seconds decided she loved these Brussels sprouts, then her friend wanted to follow suit as well. So I suddenly had two kids who were polishing off the entire batch of Brussels sprouts. And since then, Noe has now turned into a Brussels sprouts lover. So honestly, truly, when your child seems like they've got their heels, dug into the ground and vehemently says that they do not like something, it doesn't really, really, truly mean that. It just means that's the way they're defining their reality at the moment. And so the more you can keep that reality open for them and keep just a door, an uncharged, unemotional door open for them to be able to walk through and say, hey, you know what? I changed my mind. But as soon as that door becomes charged and as soon as it's, this is about me wanting you to like it, then that door will not open. That door will stay shut and they will believe that they hate Brussels sprouts. So it's really important, that whole uncharged piece, that whole opt-out language, and just continuing to foster that whole idea of being a food adventurer. So I've got 5 more ways to stack the deck here for kiddos, for getting kids to fall in love with nourishing food. Number 1 is get kids involved. If you have a garden, getting kids involved with the planting or the harvesting or anything like that, even if you're just planting some herbs, it really, really helps. I know he loves to help me make pesto. We've got this big mortar and pestle, and anytime I have her pound anything in that mortar and pestle, I can almost guarantee that she's going to eat what comes out of it because she's been involved in the whole process. Make it colorful and fun. When you look at the wrappers and stuff and all the different dyes and food colorings and everything in processed food, we got to go up against that. And the good news is we've got a beautiful array of colors in vegetables to work with. So make it colorful, make their foods really colorful and fun. Go beyond white. Make it interactive too. Anytime that you can make something where it's like a dip, that they've got to dip their foods or pull something apart or roll something up. If you make it interactive, odds are, especially with younger kids, they're going to try it. You're going to have a better chance of getting them to try it and get excited about trying it. Name it something whimsical. This also, especially for the younger kids, call celery stuffed with goat cheese, call it celery canoes with figgy goat cheese, or call egg salad Humpty Dumpty salad or something like that. Just name it something whimsical and you're going to have a much greater chance of them trying it. Also, pack it in something cool. Eco Lunchboxes has an incredible set of bento boxes that's so fun. As soon as that came in the mail, Noe just could not wait to get her lunch inside of it. So packing your foods in something cool also ups the ante and gets kids excited to eat, specifically in that case, specifically their lunch. But it just gets them excited about their lunch. So think about altering and experimenting with sort of the presentation of healthier foods rather than saying no to it altogether. Because again, it's about that exposure, right? They may not like whatever it is, Brussels sprouts in this particular form, but they might like it in another form. They might not like a quesadilla, but they might like it if it's a wrap, So just continue to play with the presentation of foods. Now I've got 5 more ways to make it easier on you. And you'll recognize a lot of these practices from Cook the Seasons too. Number one, start on a Sunday. You know, if you can get the bulk of your cooking, the bulk of your prepping done on a Sunday, you are set for the week. Take 10 to plan. Take 10 minutes to plan your week ahead. And if you're in Cook the Seasons, as I know you are, use those 10 minutes to put together your meal mapper, and you will be set for the rest of the week following that meal map. Mix and match. This is a quintessential using those core dishes to mix and match. Really, really simple. And then cook once, eat twice. You know, take those core recipes that you've mixed and matched with and double them or triple them so that you can use them later in reinvention recipes. And also freeze to free up time. So if you see a week coming, you know, ahead, and you know that you're going to be especially crunched, when you have a little bit more time, make some things that freeze well. And in Cook the Seasons, you see the freeze icon. So cook some recipes that have that freeze icon, freeze them, and then you can just pull them out and defrost them or reheat them when you're short on time later in the week or later in the month. So here's the thing though. When we talk about serving things to kids, serving vegetables to kids and having them eat it, it's gotta taste good. You know, you can't serve your kid mushy green beans or put, you know, mushy broccoli on their plate and expect them to eat it and enjoy it. You wouldn't. I wouldn't. So look at these things. These are the types of things that you're going to find in Cook the Seasons, and these are the types of things that you need to be serving to your kids so they get excited about eating vegetables and excited about eating smartly sourced proteins and excited about eating whole grains and legumes. All right, so make it interesting, make it flavorful, make it colorful, make it good. So remember the 3 golden rules. Try one bite, opt-out language of I haven't learned to like it yet, or I just don't prefer that right now, and a variety and fallbacks. Remember, 20 exposures, so don't fall away at 3. The stakes are high. Your kid's lifetime relationship with food is formed by how you eat. Think about that for a second. Sit with that for a second. Your kid's lifetime relationship with food is formed by how you eat. We develop our food preferences partially by genetics, but in large part by modeling and tradition. So this means that your choices, the ones you make for your own food and for your kids' food, are the ones that your kids will likely be making or fighting against years from now. So it's really worth starting out right. Thanks for tuning in. I really hope that this has helped you, and I hope that this will help you get your kid on the right path to learning how to love nourishing foods.
I hope you like the webinar. I hope it really, really makes an impact on your family. I'm so curious to hear what happens as it rolls out in your family. Also, you may have caught my daughter made a cameo in this. She's the one in the beginning, the opening screen, holding up a carrot. That was the only carrot to ever really come out of that garden. But that was, you know, from the get-go, she's had a very awesome relationship with food. There have definitely been bumps along the way with us. A lot of it had to do with sort of power struggles. But now at 9.5, I'm very pleased to report that she's got a very healthy relationship with food herself. So I also promised you I would take you on a walk through Cook the Seasons. So I'm going to jump back to my screen and do that. But before I did that, I wanted to let you know about an offer that we've put together for you so you can give Cook the Seasons a try with no pressure. You can get 1 month of Cook the Seasons for $15 for the next 48 hours. And with that 1 month, I'm also going to send you 4 done-for-you meal mappers. And you're going to learn in just a second a little bit more about what meal mappers are. But essentially, I'm going to send you 4 meal plans for the week, along with a whole packet that comes with the recipes for the week and the shopping list for the week. So 4 done-for-you meal mappers with a full packet, and of course access to the amazing Cook the Seasons program and site that you can create any kind of meals that you want and have access to our hundreds of amazing recipes. So let me jump in and take you on a tour. Let me just start by saying that the purpose of Cook the Seasons is to make it easy, crazy easy to plan, prep, and cook meals centered on seasonal vegetables. You know, we found that a lot of people know how they want to eat or know what they want to eat. They just don't know how to make it possible. So we created Cook the Seasons to make it possible. And one of the things that we do is subtly shift your way of thinking to really focus on seasonal vegetables by starting with the vegetables and putting the vegetables at the center of the plate. So for instance, I'm going to click on tomatoes. Cook the Seasons is based on what we call our Nourish 1, 2, 3 approach, which is based on core recipes, which are simple recipes that can be mixed and matched to create easy meals through the week, and reinvention recipes that strategically use the leftovers of core recipes to create amazing meals in and of themselves, right? Look at those. Yeah. With Cook the Seasons, you start off browsing any recipe that catches your fancy. And when you come into this page, you will see up here reinvention recipes that are made with this core recipe. Or if you're looking at a reinvention recipe, you'll see what core recipes it uses. And then you'll see what other dishes go well with this particular recipe. So this is like, this would go wonderfully with the grilled marinated tofu steak, with the meaty grilled zucchini. As a matter of fact, I just had that last night and it was amazing. Let's see, with the grilled yogurt curry chicken thighs, yum, right? All of these things go really well together. So the first step of using Cook the Seasons is just to browse and enjoy and add these things to your meal mapper list. So you're compiling at this point a list of things that look good that you just might consider making that week. You're not really creating a plan at this point. You're just kind of browsing and going, dang, that looks good. That looks good. And I'm compiling a list for my meal mapper. So that's the second step. The third step is actually compiling your meal mapper. See, if I go into meal mapper and I click on any of these plus signs, then here are the lists that I compiled. These are my core recipes that I chose that I said, ooh, those might look good. And the reinvention recipes that I said, ooh, those might look good. And then I just click whatever recipe I want to make for that day and add it to that day. So you can see how this plays out in the meal mapper here, right? For instance, I've got sweet pepper confit here that I'm making on Sunday, and it's used again over here in the Garden Niçoise. I'm making these marinated tomatoes here. Again, that's used in the Garden Niçoise. So are these sauteed green beans used in the Garden Niçoise. The parsley new potatoes here get turned into crispy smashed potatoes with toppers. And this melted eggplant and tomatoes that is so, so amazing. That I'm actually, P.S., making here on Sunday. I've said that I want to make this on Sunday because I know I'm going to have a little more time, and so that way it'll just be done. Those melted eggplant and tomatoes are also going to go into this Mediterranean flatbread sandwich. So this is how the core and the reinvention recipes work together to really give you easy, nourishing meals throughout the week in really under a half an hour. Then from this meal mapper, you can download your shopping list, you can download your recipe pack, and the recipes will even tell you if you need to multiply a recipe by a certain amount of times to be able to make enough for those reinvention recipes. When you sign up for Cook the Seasons, you'll want to start on the new Start Here page, where we've got some really great tutorial videos to walk you through how to use Cook the Seasons. It's really quite simple. We've also got some great bonus videos for you in each season and some general ones as well. And then each Friday, I will send you an email with my meal mapper for the week and also a bonus recipe each week. And then every other week, we also send you a fresh batch of 5 new recipes. You also get access to our amazing Facebook group that's just an amazing group of people sharing what they're cooking, sharing ways that they have adapted the recipes to work for their families, and really, really fun stories about how Cook the Seasons has affected people's lives and people's families. So, and people ask questions all the time, and we get a chance to jump in there and give suggestions and answers ourselves. So that is Cook the Seasons, and I really hope that you'll give it a try. Definitely do jump on this offer. You've got 48 hours to do it, and it has changed the way hundreds of families have cooked and enabled them to be able to get nourishing meals on the table for their families every night of the week. I hope between this webinar and Cook the Seasons that you will be one of those families too. Okay, so Cook the Seasons is pretty cool, right? Yes. So I hope that I get to see you in Cook the Seasons. I hope I'll get to meet you face to face in the Facebook group. And I hope that I get to hear what an impact this webinar and Cook the Seasons has on your family. Thanks so much for being here.